After the Second World War, as part of the Potsdam Agreement, the world was divided into two spheres. The USA and the USSR established a firm balance of power, and even during the Cold War, no one could afford to make threatening statements against the enemy. In 1991, the USSR collapsed, and 15 newly independent states appeared on the map. Independent Ukraine now possessed the third largest nuclear arsenal in the world after Russia and the United States.
2 days after that meeting, we signed an historic accord with President Yeltsin to eliminate some 1,800 Soviet nuclear warheads left in Ukraine. Since then, Ukraine's parliament has approved the trilateral agreement and unconditionally ratified the START Treaty and the Lisbon Protocol. Last month, Ukraine joined the NATO Partnership for Peace.
The U.S. demanded Ukraine's disarmament and the transfer of nuclear weapons to Russia. On December 5, 1994, the leaders of Ukraine, Russia, the United Kingdom, and the United States signed the Budapest memorandum. The cynicism is that Antony Blinken's father, Donald Blinken, then U.S. ambassador to Hungary, drafted this memorandum. Ukraine made a hard decision: complete disarmament in exchange for a U.S. and U.K. guarantee of its security within the 1991 borders.
Ukraine is a very important country, and I feel a personal stake because I got them to agree to give up their nuclear weapons, and none of them believed that Russia would have pulled this stunt if Ukraine still had their weapons. So I think what Mr. Putin did was very wrong. And I believe Europe and the United States should continue to support Ukraine.
Under the terms of the Budapest Agreement, Ukraine transferred to Russia 575 Ha-55 cruise missiles, about 40 Tupolev strategic bombers. It is from these very bombers that Russia now launches Kinzhal hypersonic missiles at Kiev. There is documented evidence that 3 Ha-55 missiles of those that Ukraine transferred to Russia hit the city of Kharkiv in 2023. Additionally, U.S. President Bill Clinton insisted that Ukraine further dispose of 176 medium-range ballistic missiles containing 1,272 warheads, 44 strategic bombers, 1,068 Ha-55 cruise missiles. On January 27, 2006, the final Ukrainian supersonic strategic bomber was destroyed at the Poltava Air Base. The event was witnessed by then U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine John Herbst. By 2006, Ukraine was completely bereft of powerful weapons. If Ukraine had been able to hold on to its cruise missiles and strategic bombers, then in 2014, Putin would have been afraid to seize Crimea and begin an invasion of eastern Ukraine. Alternatively, the U.S. and Great Britain should have fulfilled their obligations under the Budapest Memorandum and prevented Putin from committing this aggression. What could provoke an aggressor more than the knowledge that their actions come with no consequences? Around 5 o'clock in the morning of February 24, 2022, Putin launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. The Biden administration at the time noted, "We are closely monitoring the situation." There is a report that Harris then told Zelensky, "Don't you dare shoot at the Russians. We don't need a war." In the 21st century, Ukraine is the largest country in Europe. It boasts a population of over 40 million people, a robust economy, a highly developed banking sector, 15 nuclear reactors, including the largest nuclear power plant in Europe, and the second largest grain exporter in the world after the United States. On the other hand, it has been left without offensive weapons, as the United States and the United Kingdom guaranteed its border security. By February 24, 2022, Ukraine's air defense systems only allowed it to monitor its airspace. Putin struck the entire territory of Ukraine with Iskander ballistic missiles, as well as air and sea-based cruise missiles. Russian aircraft proceeded to bomb Ukraine around the clock. The strikes were carried out by planes from Russia and Crimea. After Patriot missiles arrived in Ukraine, Russian bombers took off from Engels and Olenia air bases, flew to the launch point 200 to 300 kilometers from the Ukrainian border, and then launched their missiles. Since it is impossible to shoot down an aircraft on approach, Russian pilots can fire on Ukrainian cities with complete impunity. 70% of Ukraine's energy has already been destroyed. "We are returning this to you," was written on recovered missile fragments. The Russian pilot's cynical joke is that it is a refund for the Ukrainians. The courageous resistance of Ukrainians required much stronger intervention from the Allies. President Biden never transferred all the money that Congress had so painstakingly allocated. Instead, Biden sent Ukraine 36 tanks. This trifling amount of heavy armor was like a mockery. Even tiny Denmark was able to do more. Biden and his administration panicked and were afraid of Putin's threats, but the aggressor only ever understands the language of force. This is the way it has always been. Biden wasn't capable of showing his strength or of making decisive decisions, and Putin knew it.
Let us be aware that while they preach the supremacy of the state, declare its omnipotence over individual man, and predict its eventual domination of all peoples on the earth, they are the focus of evil in the modern world.
Perhaps if, in 2014, the U.S. president had been a bold and decisive leader, such as Reagan or Trump, who would have kept these commitments, then the invasion of Crimea and Donbass simply would not have happened.
However, we are now deeply concerned by reports of military movements taken by the Russian Federation inside of Ukraine. Russia has a historic relationship with Ukraine, including cultural and economic ties, and a military facility in Crimea. But any violation of Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity would be deeply destabilizing.
According to the official Kremlin version, the goal of the war is to liberate the Russian population from the oppression of Ukrainian nationalists. A point of reference: Uman, a city in central Ukraine, annually welcomes tens of thousands of Jewish pilgrims from Israel and the United States. Street names here are in Hebrew, and no city in Europe has as many kosher restaurants. On April 28, 2023, Putin launched a missile attack on Uman. The missile hit a 9-story residential building, killing 23 people, including 6 children. The 47th President of the United States, Donald Trump, inherits a difficult legacy. The Clinton administration signed the Budapest memorandum and, in the process, made commitments it could not keep. President Barack Obama failed to respond to Russia's invasion of Crimea and the military operation in Donbass in 2014. President Biden has shown his weakness before a large-scale invasion of a sovereign democratic country in 2022. As the new President Trump takes his first steps in the Oval Office, Iran, China, Putin, and the Democrats are watching the whole situation very closely. All authoritarian leaders are waiting for him to make a mistake and make their move. The preservation of the democratic world now depends on President Trump. Putin offered to arrange a duel with Kyiv and the United States. He proposed that Russia would fire an Oreshnik missile at Kyiv.
Пусть определят какой-то объект для поражения, скажем, в Киеве. Сосредоточат туда все свои силы ПВО и ПРО А мы нанесем туда удар орешник. И посмотрим, что будет.
This nonsense was aired on television. Russian Channel 5, which is owned by Putin's close friend Yuri Kovalchuk, showed a video of how Russia could strike Europe and the US with missiles.
И уничтожаем к ядрене матери Киевскую плотину. Это приводит к затоплениям, и 1 миллион с лишним человек оказываются в зоне бедствия. Нам плевать.
Russian journalists on TV talked about how it would be successful for Russia to bomb Kiev's water supply and how the city could drown in excrement. Another journalist said it doesn't matter what a drone is called as long as it kills Ukrainians.
Ну, нахрен уничтожить Киев. Согласен? Уничтожить Львов.
Only a strong American leader can stop this madness. For the U.S. to project real strength, Ukraine needs to be given an opportunity to launch Storm Shadow, PRSM, and Tomahawk missiles deep into Russian territory and attack infrastructure and military facilities without constraint. Only this can sober Putin up. When ATACMS was launched deep into Russia, many world leaders feared this was an escalation. The term itself is extraordinary. Putin has been shelling Ukraine with ballistic missiles for 3 years now, systematically destroying the country. But Ukraine striking a Russian airfield is considered an escalation. This is the first step toward establishing parity of power. War always returns from where it came.